Hi everyone, welcome to this session, and it's a really special one because as the time of recording, it's Dyslexia Awareness Week, and it's Dyslexia Awareness Week 2025. I remember we were all together last time around. It goes so quickly, but it's great to have your company as we talk about where we are at currently around dyslexia with our adult community, and of course neurodiversity as well. We know that this is broader than that particular neurodifference, but tonight is a special time thinking about dyslexia. Maybe in and of itself, we shall see the conversations that we will have. I've got my Succeed with Dyslexia t-shirt on. It's always a perfect time, I think, at this time of year to wear it. And of course, Succeed with Dyslexia is part of the AND coalition. We are the Adult Network, Neurodiversity and Dyslexia. So we are made up of, as I say, Succeed with Dyslexia, Neurobox, and of course I'm also part of the Neurobox family. We are also made up of our Adult Dyslexia Centre, and she is one of our panellists this evening, but she's also the manager there, and it's Flohr MBE. Hi, Sue.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Sue, hi. Tell us a bit about the great work that you guys do at ADC.
Well, thanks very much, Donna. Thanks for inviting us. We are, well, we've been around for about 20 plus years, and we are the one-stop shop for adults. Well, that's what we're meant to be, but we do have a lot of people ringing up about their children as well. So we're there for anyone. The one-stop shop, we have a helpline that gives free advice on the telephone and by email. In fact, we offer a lot of free services. Groups for adults to join online and face-to-face, and we do assessments, and also we do assess diagnostic assessments and workplace needs assessments and training. Anything. It's a safe place for adults to go to.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Sue. The work you guys do over there is brilliant, and it's always lovely to have your support with the coalition. Next, and I'm going across the logos here, guys, we've got Hampshire Dyslexia Association. We are often joined by, those of you who listen regularly, Sue McKenna, she's the chair there. This evening, we've got Mike, who's part of the Hampshire family. Hi, Mike.
Hi, guys. Yeah, so I'm a little less glamorous than Sue, but I'm standing in for Sue today. So, yeah, Hampshire, we support sort of the far and wide reaches of Hampshire. We offer a range of bursaries to whoever wants to make applications. So we're currently working with a couple of schools, couple of community projects to help just to support the dyslexia network, dyslexia community out there.
Brilliant. Thank you, Mike. The work you guys do over there is brilliant. And I know a few times you've done conferences over on the Isle of Wight as well, which is great work.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you. It's great to have your company. And I disagree with you. I think you're as equally glamorous as our wonderful Sue McKenna. Just. So it's great to have your company. Thank you. We don't have a representative this evening from the Yorkshire Rose Dyslexia Association. Those of you who listen regularly will know that we're often joined by our wonderful Pat Payne, is a real VIP in our community, but I often share about what the work that Yorkshire does, and again, a bit like the ADC and what Mike's just shared about Hampshire, there is a lot of support there for children and adults and families. They have a helpline, and indeed we will share those details at the end of this conversation. And Pat often will share about some of the work they do with their dyslexia festivals and so on. So again, if you're in that part of the world, please do take a look at their website. The work they do in Yorkshire is really, really special. We've also got, as part of our coalition, is the Helen Arkell Dyslexia Charity. Again, fantastic work there to support the community. Please take a look at their website. They have a bursary fund for assessments and so on. And last but certainly not least, she's one of our experts this evening, but she's also part of the coalition. It's Kay Carter, CEO from the Dyslexia Association. Hi, Kay.
You always do such lovely introductions, Donna.
Oh,
and I always think no pressure then to, bring it.
You can live up to my high expectations.
I'm not
Tell
sure.
me what you do in your part of the world.
Well, similar to the colleagues here today, the ADC in Hampshire and Yorkshire Rose and Helen Arkell, we provide diagnostic services, screenings, specialist tuition in and out of schools. And we also provide a really important, and I know Sue does this as well, a free helpline that's confidential, which takes up quite a lot of the time and is much needed in the community as well. And we work in workplace as well.
Brilliant. Thank you. And again, thank you for all the work that you do. I know you guys are based in Nottinghamshire.
Yes, we
you
are.
kind of work across the country, don't you?
Across the country, but we're East Midlands.
Perfect.
We
East Midlands and proud, Kay, most definitely. It's a wonderful part of the world. Brilliant. So thank you, Coalition members. And thank you to those who are listening so far. I hope you're really going to enjoy this. Now, I am going to stop sharing my screen with that wonderful logo that we have as we start to introduce and talk to our experts. So, more introductions. We are joined this evening by wonderful Nat. And Nat, you are founder of Divergent Thinking, and also you are a thought leader in our neurodivergent community. So thank you so much for joining us this evening as one of our expert panelists. We are also joined by Steve. Steve, you are a neurodiversity specialist, you are a coach and a trainer. So again, it's great to have your company. We are joined by Danielle, and Danielle, you are the founder of Thinking Like Coaching, which is a brilliant name for a company. You're a coach, you are a consultant, and again, another thought leader in our community. We are also joined by Kim, and Kim, it's great to have your company. You are a specialist assessor. You support adults in many different ways. You are an expert in exam access arrangements. You work in colleges with younger learners, but you also have this role supporting adults in Transport for London as well. So many different parts to the work that you do in the neurodivergent community. So thank you, experts, for making time for us. We hope this conversation is going to inform and inspire. So let's get into it. I've got lots of questions. The first one then, as I said, this is Dyslexia Awareness Time. Do we think Dyslexia Awareness Time is still important now in 2025? Danielle, can I start with you to share thoughts on that one?
Yeah, so I think it's still equally as important as when it started, when we started hearing more about dyslexia. I think there's still such a part of our community that don't get the support and are still struggling. I know that I support adults, so I can't really talk for the children, but I do hear so much about children in the schooling system still suffering. And as someone whose parent thought they had dyslexic at the age of 4 and 5, and then didn't get a formal diagnosis till I was 20, my final year of uni. And that might have been a while, guys. So not new, but we're talking about the times of like libraries, so before the internet and stuff. But to hear that story still being repeated now is kind of still really tugs at the heartstrings. And I think we need to raise more around that awareness. And also for those who aren't impacted maybe by dyslexia directly, and we're talking about workplaces, also how you can support and be advocates. And we've got some amazing people on the call who are doing great things, but it doesn't just stop with the people that are impacted in the community, it also stops with the networks around them.
Yeah, thank you for starting us off. Really insightful. Nat, can I come to you with the same question? Is Dyslexia Awareness Time still relevant in this day and age?
Sorry, was that to me?
Yes, sorry.
I was away with the fairies.
No, I could see you were thinking, I can't wait for this answer.
No, that's just my clueless face. They look the same. Well, hi. Do you know what? Without sounding too controversial for the sake of it, I kind of say maybe not. And the reason why is I feel that while people's understanding of dyslexia is still not where we want it to be, more people than not have heard of it. And I would like to kind of move it forward a little bit to, I think it's the word awareness that kind of holds it back a bit. And I would love it to be more about impact. So not what is dyslexia, but why is dyslexia essential towards organizations? So maybe kind of more of a rebrand to see it more of a strength and an asset rather than something that we need to work around. So it is still important, but I do think maybe a bit of a refresh wouldn't hurt.
Yeah, that's really insightful. Thank you, Nat. Kim, same question to you. Dyslexia awareness time, is that still relevant for us?
I feel it is. I feel that we have to keep updating people, and I feel there are still lots of people who, I think you're right, I agree that awareness has changed and increased, and we've all seen lots of changes, but I still feel there are lots of people that need to be reached, and that awareness can help to create more communities and more networks, and hopefully campaigns can pull people in at a certain time when maybe they haven't thought to do that before, like a session like this. If it makes someone reach out in some way to a network group on social media or at work, and hopefully ultimately reduce stigma and self-doubt in people, because I know from my work so many adults still carry immense frustration or shame from even from their school experiences. So I think awareness weeks can help shift perceptions.
Yeah, thank you, Kim. Really interesting to hear you share that. Sue, at ADC, you guys are always at the front line, especially maybe during these times when there's a spotlight. Do you feel that we still need this dyslexia awareness time to make a difference?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been around so long that when I started out on this journey, everything was called dyslexia, and yeah, they didn't deserve to be in our space. But then we defined things better, and the ADHD people had their own platform, the ASD ones had theirs, the dyspraxia ones had theirs, the dyscalculia had theirs, and now it's gone full circle, and we need our own space to be able to shout louder and rejuvenate it and get the help that dyslexics really need. I know there's so much comorbidity, there's a better word now for that, isn't there? Among, we don't all fit neatly into one box, but it's time to shout about dyslexia and give us our own space. Yeah, we need it.
So we still need it even after all these years. Thank you, Sue. Yeah, thank you. And Kay, you're similar to Sue, where you're at the cutting edge on helplines and so on. What's your thinking about dyslexia awareness time in this day and age?
Well, for us, it's every day is Dyslexia Awareness Day. I agree that actually it creates a sort of focused moment in terms of that bit in the calendar. But I like Nat's comment. There's my brain goes to, I've worked in schools, so my brain goes to like the Ofsted moment of the and so what, how are we going to move it on? But then Danielle's comment about, people are still repeating the same stories. So, you go back to, well, there is still a need to raise awareness, but we also need to try and move on the conversation as well. So I'm not sure I've answered that question. I'm kind of, there's a bit of both of, yes, it's still needed, but equally we need to move the conversation on as well.
Yeah, thank you, Kay. No, you really did, because this is an interesting idea to kind of think about. And Steve, closing words to you on this first question about dyslexia awareness time. I know how passionate you are in the community. Yeah. Is it still relevant now to have this special time for dyslexia?
Yeah, I think it is. It's one of those things, because I've sort of looked at it or look at it from two parts. I've had, I think it was 5 or 6 years working in SEN schools, so sort of as an SEN teacher, as well as the work I do with adults. And I know in the school environment, it's very much that aspect in that kind of a school of sort of getting an idea of how to help the students, how to help the young people. But also, I think it can be that understanding of, okay, if you have dyslexia, that that can be a challenge. But what other things are you great at? What other things can you do better than anyone else? What things can you do with dyslexia, with your dyslexia, that makes you the top 1% in the world at doing whatever it might be. And I think that's something that could resonate not only in the sort of educational environment, but also in the work environment, because often it's almost like a kind of a stigma. I know for me, when I was sort of working in the corporate world, I wouldn't let people know I had dyslexia. And I grew up, I'm a child of the 70s, so there's that aspect of being a black young boy in the UK in the 70s. But even when I moved into my working life, I wouldn't let people know I was dyslexic, and I wouldn't let them know I was dyslexic until I was so good at the job that nobody could say, "Oh, maybe Steve's not good at the job because he's dyslexic," because I already had the job. You know, I already knew exactly about everything I needed to know about the job role. So it was almost I had to earn my stripes before I'd let people know that's how that's how my brain processed things. And I keep it all very undercover, and it was really, really exhausting. So I think even opening up that conversation where it's not having to be led by the person that may have the dyslexia, but it's a more of an open arena, can at least get conversations going and get, you know, people talking about the nuances of it a lot more, both in schools and in that work environment. So yeah, I think it's definitely a good thing. And kind of like as Nat said, and also Kay, it's sort of moving on a little bit more. So we're not just looking at, okay, dyslexia itself, but more of what dyslexia looks like to somebody that is dealing with it. How does that look? How does that shape their day? How does that shape their interactions and their stresses and their challenges, really, in a realistic day-to-day application.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. I love that because you've touched there on intersectionality, issues around masking, but I love that closing idea about keeping it real, about real issues that real folks are living with. The theme then this year, and for those who aren't sure, every Dyslexia Awareness time has a theme. This time around, it's raising the volume. And I'm, again, experts, I'm going to come to each and every one of you to share thoughts on what that actually means to us about raising the volume. Kim, can I start with you about what does that theme mean to you, raising the volume?
I think it's about making dyslexia or neurodiversities more visible and not hiding them, and where possible, if people have the confidence to speak up about their own situations, the way Steve just did, share real stories, because I think that can then push people to advocate for change and move things forward like we're talking about, and make people realize that, I can ask for support. I didn't know I could. I didn't know I was entitled to this at college or this at work. So hopefully to give people the confidence to speak up and be heard, or find an ally or a group who can maybe do it on their behalf if they don't have the confidence. But I think it's hopefully to, along that, celebrate strengths and not always focus on what people can't do, but keep the message going, really, I guess is what we're saying.
Yeah, really nice. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
Kay, same question to you. What does raising the volume mean to you?
Well, I've thought about this. Obviously, I saw raising the volume. Now, my mind just goes to, and some of you might not get the cultural reference, which is Spinal Tap. I don't know if most of you remember Spinal.
I get it. Yep.
So yeah, like let's turn it to 11. You know, but that's where my mind went. But Kim's right. For me, it's about raising the volume on people's voices, amplifying stories. Amplifying the lived experience, and maybe, not talking to experts about it. What is the impact in everyday life? That to me is what raising the volume means. But the thing is if you turn the volume up, people have to listen. So there's an element of listening there as well in that strap line, I think, for me.
Yeah, I really like that idea about listening. Nat, I'd love to hear your thoughts about what raising the volume means to you.
Okay, well, thanks, Donna. I suppose for me, it's kind of the similar, like turning the heat up, taking it up a notch. We've been talking about dyslexia inclusion for feels like forever, and there has been adjustments, but it just seems kind of too gradual. Like, I'd love for people to know that awareness doesn't equal impact. And if we really want something to change, I think we have to be a bit more drastic within our actions. So I think people need to know that, for instance, dyslexia isn't a problem, it's that design is, and to take more kind of bolder approaches. So a big one for me, and I appreciate not all of you may agree with it, but it would be to scrap reasonable adjustments. And I say that because I want universal design and inclusive design to be the absolute standard. So we have like a baseline of support that is offered to everyone, and it kind of takes away the us v them. I think for me, that's what it would mean to raise the volume somewhat.
Yeah, I love that. What you sharing this evening is really, I think, giving us lots to think about. Danielle, can I bring you in now on the back of what our experts have shared so far? What does raising the volume mean to you?
Well, I have to thank Nat for his comment, because there is aspects of what you've just mentioned that's made me think, and I do believe in universal design. My utopia would be that we don't have this conversation and we don't have to have these meetings and everybody's included. But I'm also thinking about raising the volume as a gradual raise, because we're not there yet. And there's a lot of people, particularly in certain communities like mine, where that is still a taboo. We're still back, 30 years ago, maybe when Sue started, there's still that mentality around. And I think raising the volume is about raising that up. I liked an analogy about the heat and gradually raising it.
Yeah.
But I think that's what the whole point is. We raise it slowly so we can build awareness. And also, when we talk about adults, we're not just talking just for those online people who work in workplaces and corporates. As someone who's moved from corporate into self-employed, there's a hell of a lot of people who are different neurotypes who are self-employed, who get missed between the cracks, haven't necessarily had that situation where they've had those adjustments and don't know how to adapt them within their working environments as well. Entrepreneurs, self-employed individuals, creatives. So again, we're not just raising the volume for the corporates and the children and the young people. We're raising the volume to expand to those reaches and those corners and those edges that don't get the support as readily as everybody else does.
Yeah, thank you. Do you know, guys, it's really interesting to hear you speak in these ways. And Steve, I know what you're going to share now will be no different. What does raising the volume mean to you in this context?
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely touches on sort of the aspects of our colleagues have made already. But yeah, I think it's also that part of keeping it as far as a topic of awareness. So, it's up there and people get to know. And very much like Danielle said, it's that aspect of not just thinking it's like maybe a couple of avenues you're looking at. It's the self-employed people, it's people with, because very often when I do my awareness training with companies, and they're like, what do we need to do? And it was almost exactly as Nathan put it. It's almost like you need to treat everyone the same. Like, literally, like let's say everyone's neurodiverse, and everybody gets the same induction at the start of their new employment or at the start of their new, induction enrollment stage. Whether you're neurodiverse or not, you're going to be told, okay, well, if you are, we have this facility, we have this, we have this, we have that. Whether people use it or not, or even need it, doesn't matter. Everyone's had that same level. So when they enter that company, or when they enter that workforce, or when they enter that even that university, whatever it might be, they've got a full understanding that they're fully supported. They're not going to feel like, oh, I don't even know what to ask for. I know I'm different, and I know I need help, but I don't even know what to ask for because I don't even know what's out there, which is something I hear a lot when I'm sort of working, and you probably yourself, Donna, where we're working with companies and the newly diagnosed individual literally doesn't even know what's out there as far as helps, what help they can ask for. And it's only when somebody goes through and say, okay, well, there's this available, there's that available, this is something you could look into, and their eyes open up wide because no one's told them that was even a consideration. So I think, sort of keeping up the heat on that is sort of keeping that conversation open, so somebody can go into an environment and say, actually, I need this, or I want that, or this would help me, and not feel as if they're the only person in the whole company of 250 people, 500 people, 1,000 people that have asked for this particular bit of assistance. It's a given now. It's there. It's usable, and whether you need it, whether you may need it for dyslexia or any other neurodiversity, it's there to be utilized. I think it's keeping that volume up so people have the comfort and the security to almost like advocate for themselves. They know they're going to be received in the right way.
Brilliant. Thank you, Steve. Really insightful. And I love how every answer's kind of building on to the next. So thank you, experts. Sue, love to hear your thoughts about this one then. Raising the volume. What does that mean for you?
Well, I thought it meant let's all shout about it, but I think everybody else is a bit polite. I've often felt like I was, you know, alone in this, lobbying government, and I thought, I wish everybody else was. It was a lonely pathway, getting onto the, you know, people who make decisions and trying to get the message across. So many people still believe it's just with reading and writing that there's a problem, and it's not that, and there's so much more to do. I remember, Donna, when we did a project together, trying to find, I think we were trying to find 20 companies that knew all about dyslexia, and how many did we contact? More than 100, and it was a real struggle. There's so much more to do, and I think we still need to do a lot of shouting. Yeah. Sorry.
Thank you. No, I agree with you, and I think it's interesting because each of you have come to that raising the volume in a slightly different way, and it all kind of complements each other beautifully. So we're still going to keep on the topic of this raising the volume, but this time, experts, I'm going to come around and ask, how can we've kind of started to maybe speak about how we can do this by universal design and so on, but if you can kind of think what you'd like to share about how can we make sure that we are raising the volume. So from the more theoretical idea of as a concept to now practically what can we do. Nat, can I come to you first for that? How can we realistically raise the volume?
I think it's about having new conversations rather than the ones we've always had. And the ones we've always had is explaining what dyslexia is and how it impacts us. So the way I would go about this is making sure that like portable adjustment passports, people call them many different things, but essentially adjustments passport. So something that everyone in an organization will have, regardless of any diagnosis, and it just says who you are, how your brain works, what works best for you, and you can take it place from place. And the reason I like that is it doesn't discriminate against those who have and who do not have a diagnosis. And it also appreciates that there isn't that we think different, it's that everyone thinks different. And as a result, we all have different communication preferences. And it's something you can take from employer to employer or to colleague, so you don't have to keep retelling everyone your whole life story every time. That's what I would find most helpful.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much. Danielle, same question. How can we practically make this happen, raising the volume?
Well, first I have to leverage on that to say that his passport idea, which I've seen around in some organisations, definitely expand that to other areas of your life. I mean, I've talked about the people that fall out of this criteria who are entrepreneurs and self-employed. So how do we do that? But I'm reflecting in the moment, and I do that because that's how my dyslexic brain works, about Sue's comment. And I think we've all seen documentaries and some shouting and raising the volumes on social media. We, heard about Jamie Oliver's campaign with government. I'm going to be very controversial, and people on here may agree with me. That was great in that moment, but then what happened? When I watched it, I was like, what next? And then I was like, what do I do, who spent a lot of time trying to not be on social media to try and sort out my business and manage my neurodivergence? How am I raising aware of this, and what can I actually do? What's the next step? So it's feed into what Nat's saying, it's feed into what Sue's been championing. How do we make sure that this is not going beyond the organizations and starts going into policies and going into places where it really makes a difference, and raise a volume in those spaces where people are trying to say, tick a box. We see this in so many other areas like intersectionality, gender, LGBT plus community. We see it in so many areas, but how do we raise that within dyslexia? And also, how do we do it when we're not alone? We have some amazing people on the call here. We've got an amazing network of some really big organizations. I'm advocating already to go to my local council to say, why do we not have a dyslexia association where I live in Hertfordshire? So, bringing our expertise together, helping individuals like who've got historical knowledge like Sue. How can we leverage? How can Nat and Sue and I and Steve and Kate and Kim and you, Donna, get together and make a change? And how do we find the people who are already in those spaces, like you do in your job? When you're going up for promotion, you find people in that spaces to help promote you. So how do we do that for dyslexia?
Brilliant. Danielle, that's so inspirational. Thank you. And it gives us lots to think about, I think, Kim. Kim, share what it means to you practically to try and raise the volume on these issues.
Yeah, I was thinking as everyone was talking, that it's kind of like raising the volume over the barriers, isn't it? That we're talking about really, and like, how do we actually do that? And I'm thinking that some of the changes I've seen at Transport for London that I think have been really positive have been around like network groups where like-minded people can get together and sort out what solutions they want. And like Nat's idea of like having solutions for everyone, so you're not singled out because you want to use dictation or you want a separate room or a bigger screen, that they're just there and it's just a norm. And I think I've also seen sort of making that more localized, so having, if where possible, what you could call like a neurodiversity champion or a named person in a department who doesn't mind being advertising themselves as someone that people can come to, and they'll give ideas and strategies and advice about what can be asked for. And I think people having meetups around that so that they continue with solutions and having a voice really, and not letting it just fizzle out, or not letting it just be one person in the department who has to go into a separate room because they get very distracted by all the noise, you know, that it just becomes normal to do that. And I heard of one manager that had an issue where there was somebody who found the bright lights really difficult and kept turning the lights down, and then the other colleagues would say, no, I need bright lights. So he put a dimmer switch in. And I thought, what an amazing thing to do. That's so simple. So whoever goes in can just adjust the lights. And it always makes me think that adjustments and change can be really small and just very practical and very almost obvious. And I guess we need the neurodivergent community to keep that pressure up, don't we? And keep that voice up.
Thank you. And actually, again, how you're sharing is very, you know, all similar ideas about connection and how we get it right for the community. It's really inspiring. Kay, you spend a lot of time over at the Dyslexia Association suggesting practical things that can support folks. Kay, how can we practically raise the volume then? What are you thinking on this?
Well, this is all about community, isn't it? And I've written lots of notes in terms of the questions. This is one question I'm struggling a little bit with. If I'm honest, I really like all of the suggestions that have come through, and we've talked, or my colleagues have talked about the workplace. It brought to mind we're working with dyslexic theatre maker in Suffolk to bring the community together to put on sort of workshops to really get, again, going back to raising the volume, to really get people's real stories, to think about how can we maybe do training in a slightly different way. So Donna and Steve and Kim, you all do this as well. You know, we all go in, don't we? Have lovely PowerPoints, and we try and build in some activities. And what we're trying to do there is work with the local community to say, but what is your story? What can we do in terms of something slightly different? What can we offer people in a slightly different way? So it's taking it out of the workplace a little bit, but it is thinking about, you know, maybe we can use the arts, maybe we can use theatre. That's my passion, guys. You know, maybe we can use different sort of avenues and approaches and vehicles to really immerse people in those worlds. So that, for me, that's kind of what community is about. But we've got Danny on the call here, and Danny and I were in we did an event for Notts Fire Service yesterday, and we talked a lot about staff networks, Kim, you know, and the importance of staff networks. There are pros and cons, aren't there? There are pitfalls, and there are different ways of actually doing those staff networks really, really well. But I agree, it is about bringing So not expert led, bringing people together. That's what community means to me. And understanding that, you know, dyslexia will show up for people in different ways because of the different people we are, you know, the way that we've been brought up, who we are, what age we are. I mentioned spinal tap, you know, that's just my cultural reference. So it's moving, going back to what Nat was saying, it's moving it on, it's bringing it into that intersectionality as well, I think, and really understanding, you know, how does it show up for you? Because it's different for everybody, isn't it? Yeah, sorry, slight waffle there.
No, it wasn't a waffle.
Apologies, colleagues, slight waffle.
No, it was brilliant. It is. It's just really interesting listening to you all. Steve, again, please share on how can we practically raise the volume?
Yeah, it's a good one. I think kind of as everyone's touched on to a degree, it is getting it out there to almost like in that political arena to a degree, as far as things being put into place to make sure things are done. Because I always look at it now, and it's a totally different view to when I was a child, and I would see politicians on the TV, and I would think, oh, those people are there to make sure everything's okay for us. You know, they're there to look after us and make sure the laws are stuck to, and, you know, basically look at, and obviously as we grow up, we know that's not always the scenario. But one thing they do is put rules in place, whether we like them or not. There's rules put in place and we have to follow them. And I think having something such as that in regard to the dyslexic aspect of things, where there are sets of rules where a company have to do something. For instance, whether that's a company, a school, whatever that basis is, or even in the broader sense, society. There's a certain way of operating in society that has to be adhered to make sure somebody with dyslexia is looked after, treated the right way, is sort of essentially looked after the right way. Because I know from my experience, you can go into somewhere or be around people and they'll say the right things. They'll say, yeah, we do this, we do that, we make sure this is done, we'll look after that, we'll do this for you. And you walk away from that scenario thinking, oh yeah, these people have got it on lockdown. They know what they're doing. They really are, you know, looking after that side of things. But you speak to the employees of that company, or you speak to the people inside or working in there, or even the general public, and they're like, no, they do the exact opposite. As soon as they say the words, that's it. It's like extremely good lip service. And as far as being able to prove they're not doing it, it's difficult. So they can talk a really good game, but when it comes down to it, it can be the polar opposite of what they're doing. It can be night and day. And sometimes I'm still shocked from hearing about places and what they promise to do, or, you know, even in the bigger arena of things that are promised, and then just how little is delivered in the reality. And I think it's kind of making sure that there is something or someone or a group high enough above everything to say, if you don't do this, you're going to be in trouble. The same way as if we don't pay our council tax, we're in trouble. You know, there's no ambiguity with it. You do it, or there are repercussions. And it's that kind of a level of making sure things are done, and not just saying, we'd like you to follow these guidelines. It's like, no, these are getting done, otherwise we're coming down on you. And it's almost a shame you have to be like that. But I think in the way the world is now, you almost do need, whether that's a group, or I'm not quite sure how it would look in reality. But yeah, maybe a political arena where things are put into place and they have to be followed. Otherwise, there are repercussions. And I think that might be a way of sort of making sure things are done officially the right way. That the T's are crossed, the I's are dotted, belts and braces kind of approach with things to make sure it's done the right way.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve, because you're talking now, complementing what the other experts said about going bigger here, almost at campaigning, government level. And
Yeah.
Sue, I'm going to come to you as our last expert voice about what this means. And of course, you spent many years doing that. Your MBE was awarded to you for services to the dyslexic community, in a large part changing legislation and so on. Sue, how can we make sure practically then that we raise the volume?
Yeah, there's loads of ideas here. But for me, it is still contacting the decision makers. But first of all, giving the community, giving our adult dyslexics the confidence to take things forward themselves, not to sit and suffer, but to raise the volume and to take it further, and to step in, for us to step in where we need to, for us to contact their MPs when things are affecting them, to get change. I've worked with Kim. We got a lot of change, haven't we, Kim, with organisations in changing their attitude. And I work with you, Donna, in doing this. And even now, this week I've contacted 2 judges in court cases to tell them how they should be listening to or not treating, but considering dyslexics in legal situations. And the Home Office as well. Don't be afraid. We're all experts here. We mustn't be afraid to move into those fields and to go that step further to help our community, really. Yeah.
Thank you, Sue.
Is that waffling as well? But I
No,
think
it wasn't waffling. It's
dynamic, not just give them a pat on the back. We've got to help people to move forward, and sometimes we need to take that step further.
Yeah, thank you, guys. It's really insightful to hear you talk about how we make the practical changes that we want to see, which brings me nicely on to our next question, which is about how optimistic that we feel for the future. With the changes that we've started to hint at, and including changes around diversity, equity, inclusion across the world, actually, do we feel optimistic for the future? Now, either way, if you're a yes or a no, I'd love to hear a few thoughts as to why you might be a yes or a no, or maybe you're a little bit of both. So, Steve, can I come to you first? Do you feel optimistic for the future for our community?
Yeah, I mean, I think with me looking at it from my younger eyes, as far as how things were when I was a child growing up, and back then there wasn't even dyslexia. Realistically, you were just put into the slow class for English and maths. That was your lot, and that's how it went, and that's where I ended up. And I just always remember having things there were certain things I was really good at, and there were certain things I was not so good at. And from my point of view, I think, I hope that things were a little bit better in certain aspects, because I know when I was, say for instance, in my early formative years growing up, the thing that came into my mind is, what kind of job can I get that doesn't involve reading, writing, or spelling, or maths? That's literally how I thought, because I thought I'm no good at any of those ones. I'm great at sort of acting. I loved acting. I love sort of anything technical. Anything technical was a piece of cake to me. So I had to literally, my brain, even in those formative years, the way it's been shaped, I was shaping my brain to be like, how can I grow up to be like my mum and dad and raise a family and support a household if I can't read, write, and spell and do maths? And that's how I used to think. And I've obviously, with the time I've had in schools, that seems to have improved, but even on that basis, sometimes you need to have a school that caters for that and has specialized teaching practices and specialized levels of education and understanding, because if it's in a mainstream school, you might not get that same level of care. So I think I do have a lot of hope for things, but there's a lot that needs to be done at the same time to make sure that pressure is still put on there, to make sure that people don't slip through the woodwork. And once they grow up and then maybe they move on to their higher education, or they move on to a job role, or they're even on a socializing aspect of things, that they're supported to sort of feel comfortable where they are and get the best out of what they can do, and not feel like they're a burden on a company because they've asked for this bit of equipment and they need this to work better. But to feel like, yeah, I'm strong enough to do it now. I know I'm not stupid. I know I'm not silly. So if you want the best out of me, I'm going to need, this bit of equipment, or I'm going to need this bit of software. And it's almost trying to build up that confidence in a person where they feel confident enough to ask for those kind of things. So yeah, so there is that optimism there, but I guess probably, like we'll all say to one degree or another, there's a lot more work that has to be done. It's better than it was, but we're not there. We definitely can't take our feet off the pedal, our foot off the pedal at all. It's still a lot of work, and there's still a lot of consistency, still a lot of having to be on doors and annoy people to make sure that our voices are heard, you know, to a degree, and not just be like, oh well, if we ignore them banging on the door, they'll get tired and go away. It's that kind of thing where it's like, no, we'll stay here until someone opens the door or speaks to us about things. It's that kind of thing. So yeah, I think the optimism comes with having good people that don't give up easy. I think that's probably my best way of putting it, because it's not an easy thing to do. It's not sometimes it's not a fun thing to do, but the difference is with having the right people there that don't give up. There's that degree of stubbornness, which, I mean, I think definitely my part of my neurodiversity is a huge degree of stubbornness. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it works well, and that, you know, it means I just don't give up on things. Other times it means I won't have a different type of oatmeal, because I'm used to this old oatmeal that I've had since I was 10 years old. So it's that kind of a thing, really.
Love it. I love it. And I guess that connects to raising the volume, isn't it? As well as our stubbornness, it's raising the volume to make the changes. Danielle, same question to you. Do you feel optimistic for the future? And whatever your answer, I'd love to hear your thoughts on why that might be the case.
So I'm going to be the controversial one, as that's how my brain works. And
go for it.
I think we need to be very mindful that there's been a lot of change going on politically. We can't ignore that and the impact that's happened, not just in terms of the workplace, but also our community and how people feel safe. That has kind of, I think, had a bit of an impact on how people show up. My coaching clients, you know, they're working in environments where sometimes their D&I departments are slashed. My previous organisation I worked with were one of the kind of highly discussed companies who made a change to their wording on DE&I. But actually within that organisation, they were still championing and pushing things forward. And that's where my optimism comes from. I think one of the things I always note when I think about optimism and what's going on at the moment is a few things. First of all, people are more aware. And I think that's coming from a generational thing. I don't think we really have appreciated some of the difference in generations, the Gen Zs, the younger people, how their psychology is around this is not right. Just that statement of this is not right, and trying to understand and how that is indirectly supporting some of the older generation to say this isn't right, or actually my grandchild mentioned this. Oh, what's that about? You know, I get so many clients go to me saying, yeah, actually, if I look back, my granddad had this neurotype, or yeah, I could see how my parents might have had that, and they're of my age and older. You know, it's not something that suddenly popped up in society. It's been around for ages. I think another thing is around, there's been an increase of research. Now, one of the things I'm going to be very honest around is we've had peaks and flows across different neurotypes. So now is the ADHD time. The dyslexia time was hyped back years ago, and we need to bring it back and say these are all changes and these are all differences, and we need to be able to appreciate them. And dyslexia doesn't go away because we're not talking about it. So it goes back into raising the volume. But also from an individual's perspective, I think I'm optimistic because I still get people saying, can you help me with coaching around my dyslexia? Can you come into organizations and help me with training around neuro and neurodivergences? Can you help me? Can you share your story about your dyslexic journey, because we feel that inspires others? I'm still getting people ask those questions. And when that dies a death, then I would be like, either we're in utopia, which I talked about when Nat was talking about his utopia, or we're in a really hard place. And I just don't think we're in that hard place yet, because I think for once, and I always talk about this, I'm going to be very controversial with this. I don't think AI and technology is evolution. I really honestly believe that the way that our brains work and our behaviors is how the human race is going to evolve as humanity. And the more we understand that, and I think we're starting to have shifts that for the first time we've had since the industrial age and since the working age and since education was implemented, I think we're having shifts on a behavior level across the world. This is not just Western world and other words. This is across the world, that they're questioning and they're being curious and they're saying, no, we don't want that. And we're seeing that across other areas. And I think that will switch. But I think we're in a pinnacle point where we're getting friction between politics, society, unconscious bias, tribalism. We're not there, and that's the bit that we're friction at. But I think we will overcome that, and I think it is in some ways very simple for us to be able to appreciate where we are. And this goes right back to what Nat said about universal design. It goes right back to what Kim's talking about around creating networks. I co-founded a network in my organization. That's how I first got into supporting neurodiversity, after spending 10 to 15 years ignoring my dyslexia. So these things are powerful, and I think these will continue to be powerful. So I am optimistic, though I am naturally slightly realistic and pessimistic.
Okay. So inspirational, Danielle. Thank you. Wow, what an answer. Sue, optimistic for the future. What do you think?
How do I follow that?
No pressure, Sue.
Optimistic. Well, it's a bit disappointing, with DSA being diluted and access to work being diluted, all these things leaving us. But yeah, I'm optimistic. You talked about worldwide, didn't you? I mean, other countries still look to us to see what we're doing, want our speakers and follow our ways and follow what we've already got in place. So yeah, I'm optimistic.
Good, thank you. Kim, same question. Optimistic for the future.
I think after hearing everyone, I would use the phrase cautious optimism, maybe.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I think in my career, which is probably maybe 30 years-ish, I feel like I've seen change. And because I've seen it myself now, I think, oh, so that's how it happens. And some people have mentioned that it's a bit too slow. And sometimes we have great strides and then it goes back a couple of steps, or you think things are really ideal somewhere and then you hear a horror story about someone being really marginalized or forgotten about, So it's made me realize that change is never a smooth line, that it's a very bumpy road. But I personally feel that awareness and understanding has definitely grown and growing. And I think the dyslexic community is strong and vocal and, as we know, creative, great problem solvers. So if the neurodivergent people are more the voice, then we're going to get more solutions, I think, and more creative changes and more things none of us have thought about, maybe, that could come forward and help to lift the barriers and create this utopia that Nat was talking about. So yeah, I do feel cautiously optimistic.
A very wise answer. Okay, same question. You feel optimistic?
I'm going on Sue's slipstream that she mentioned a while back. I think if we can grasp some of the political sort of debates, because Sue's right, it's about decision making. It is for me about policy often. And if we look at productivity, if we can start to move some of that, Steve and I were saying before, I do feel a momentum, and I think if we can push that momentum a little bit and start to talk about productivity, when we talk to head teachers and go, would you like to increase your your GCSE results by 10%? Well, of course they would. And all they need to do is really look at, as Kim will know, exam access arrangements and support those pupils a little bit better. Productivity in the workplace, the things that we've been talking about the passport. This is where I get passionate. There are so many people who could be doing so much more. The resilience that Steve talked about. If we can just ride that slipstream a little bit and really, have those political conversations at that level, yes, I'm optimistic at that point.
Brilliant. Very inspirational. Okay, thank you. Nat, last but certainly not least, love to hear your thoughts. Do you feel optimistic for where we're heading?
Okay, well, first of all, it's really difficult waiting to the end. I'm like, so many opinions.
Sorry.
No, you know what? It was about time. So to be honest, I am actually quite an optimist. I completely hear what you're all saying, and let's face it, the world is a you know, it's a storm at the moment. The world's not great. But if we kind of like back out a little bit and look at like the real big picture, I think we are still the best we've ever been in history. The reason why dyslexia is even on the agenda is because the world has gotten remarkably better. So if you look at back in the old days, and we're talking like hundreds of years, we were so preoccupied on child mortality. Kids were dying every 5 seconds. And since we have been able to massively reduce mortality, the amount of time and energy that we've been able to put in other areas, such as neurodivergence, has gone up lots. So I think if you look in the how we are right now, we might be on a bit of a downer, but on the bigger scale, I think we are still going up. And in terms of optimism, I think, Danielle, this is where I probably might disagree with like your perspective on AI, where from my view, I think it's something which is completely revolutionizing how dyslexics see their own self-value. So in my world, I think, is dyslexia a disability or is it a strength? And ultimately, I think it's situational. And I believe AI is reducing the amount of situations where dyslexia feels like a barrier and freeing up more time where dyslexia can have the space it needs to be a strength. I kind of think of AI a bit, well, like before AI, being a dyslexic was being like a painter without any paints. You don't have the materials to kind of add to the canvas, and it's challenging. Where now I feel less like a painter and more like a sculptor. I've already got my materials, and now my job is just to carve it away and to like be more of an editor rather than a writer. And for me, it has allowed me to do roles and jobs that I never could have imagined when I was younger, because there felt like there were too many barriers in place. So I feel much more optimistic from kind of a self-advocacy. I can do it myself now, opposed to waiting and relying on other people to make the adjustments on my behalf.
Can I just add to that, Nat?
Yes, of course you can, Danielle. Come on, let's get the conversation going, guys.
I wanted to say, I am not demonizing AI. There's things that my life has changed due to AI and tech. And I constantly, you know, my clients talk to me constantly around, can I use it? We know that some organizations have security and other issues around it. But as someone who doesn't have that in my day-to-day, AI has been absolutely revelational. But I don't want us to think that that is as humanity, that is our only evolution. I think we need to look really closely about how we're communicating and how we're connecting in a different way. We're kind of going, I feel like in some spaces we are trying to head back to that community feel that we don't have. If you remember back in the years, they used to have like Jubilee and everybody used to sit outside and have their party when the Queen or the royals had a party, or there was D-Day, V-Day, and people were out celebrating. We missed that. In certain parts of the country, that does not exist. And so I think that is something that not just we're seeking as a community that are dyslexics, but actually as advocates, as their wider community we're looking for, and generally across, especially the Western world. So I think tech is absolutely phenomenal. And I think as a dyslexic woman, that has been absolutely changeable. But I also don't want us to put all our eggs in one basket with tech. And really also leverage on using it as a tool to help support us, also recognizing our strengths individually, even if we don't have those paints. Could we take the paper and make it into paper mache? Could I tear it up and make it into origami? Like, what else could I do with it? Thinking outside of that. But also, actually, is that somebody else who sees that piece of paper and doesn't see me have paints and says, Danielle, why don't you try and do this with it? And having that communal feel. But I 100% agree with you, Nat. No. It is an absolute amazement, and agree that it's helped me do things that I never thought I'd be possible to do. So
I fully agree with kind of your perspective on that. I see AI as a medium. Doesn't mean it's the only tool you have at your disposal. I think with in the words of I think Uncle Ben, with great power comes great responsibility, and AI needs to be used in a very smart way. So I can tell if someone uses AI, but if people use it to enhance what they already have, then why not? So I think if we rely on it completely, we've lost ourselves. But if we use it tastefully, then I think it can essentially level the playing field and allows our unique way of thinking finally get heard.
Thank you, guys. It's so insightful to hear you talk. This is a reflection of more general conversations that we're having across our culture at the moment about technology and that human-to-human contact. So, experts, wow, this conversation has been amazing. I've got one more question. I've also got one eye on the time, but I really do want to ask you this. But the challenge is, can you give me the answer really quick in a nutshell? And Nat, I'm going to come to you first, so no pressure. The question is, what inspirational thoughts, words of wisdom would you like to share for those who are listening to this conversation in a nutshell? Over to you, Nat.
Okay, well, I think let's move away from awareness. In an ideal world, forget about awareness month, have action month, and be more action orientated. What is something that you can do today to make the world more accessible for everyone?
Love it. Action. Brilliant. Steve, closing words of wisdom for those listening.
That's a good one. I think we, as crazy as the world is now, you know, with everything going on, I think with the support and the technology that we have, it's probably easier for somebody with dyslexia or neurodiversity to do whatever they want to do with the right support, you know, utilizing technology, people to speak to, having connections. I think now, for me, now I feel I could do anything more easier now than I could have ever done in my life, going back decades, really.
Love it. Thank you, Steve. Kay, same question. Words of wisdom.
I've got a strap line. That's what I've been working on. Hopefully it might be used next year. I don't know if Helen Broom's listening from the BD8, but it goes like this, alliteration. Dyslexia, difference, not deficit.
Love it. Thank you, Kay. Danielle, closing words of wisdom.
Community. I'm going to say community with tech, but community. I think we like Nat has said, we are looking at that dip. If we pan out, we'll see that we are getting there. I don't think we should forget how far we've come and celebrate how far we've come, but also building that community. And I think community goes right into what we've been discussing around action as well. So I love that Nat's idea around what can you do? So what can you do? One, and what can you do as a community and network?
Yeah, love it. Thank you, Danielle. Kim, same question, closing words.
Thank you. Oh, I've got so many things I could say. I was thinking how this business of AI, and if we know that many of the world's most amazing ideas and inventions have come from minds that don't follow the usual path, and if AI is being trained by the people that are using it, us, then imagine what it can become. It's just going to be full of everybody's amazing ideas. So maybe it's like a melting pot of interesting fantasticness that will be in it at some point. So I think that's my closing ideas, really, because everybody's got me spellbound now by what they were saying.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you. It's almost the power of the future and technology. And Stu, I'm going to come to you last. As one of the wisest people I know, you're a real pioneer woman in the dyslexia community. And I'd love to hand over to you as you share some wise words as we draw this conversation to a close.
Was that me?
That is you, Sue. Recognise yourself. You are a very wise person.
I don't think I'm lost. I think, well, my word of wisdom was be like me and make AI or ChatGPT your best friend. But you do need a real person and a real community. So I would say don't fight alone, raise the volume and join one of our support groups. Go on to www.adc.org.uk and raise the volume together and fight the good cause.
Thank you, Sue.
And that's why she's got an MBE, guys.
It is. That is why she's got an MBE.
You get it on my own.
Very wise person. So, with that in mind, guys, let me share my screen. Hopefully you can see this okay. This is always the bit I get very nervous as I'm trying to sort the technology out. Wow, this conversation we hope you've really enjoyed. We've had lots of very wise words shared. I think one of the issues that's come out is about joining together, community, and not being alone. And all our experts do such fabulous work across the communities to support that solidarity, including the coalition partners here at And as always, I finish them before we say goodbye to you and stop the recording, the contact details of our coalition. As Sue's just give a massive plug to where she is manager at the Adult Dyslexia Centre. We've got the helpline number and the helpline email address. Yorkshire Rose is part of the family as well. Here is their helpline details, the telephone number and an email address. Hampshire, we heard from Mike a little bit earlier talking about all that great work over there. There is their email address to reach out. We've got Kay with us this evening, and she is the CEO over at the Dyslexia Association. There is their helpline email address, and you can contact them and request a call as well. Now, Succeed with Dyslexia and Neurobox don't have a helpline in that way. They don't work in those ways, but they've got lots of great resources, especially at SWD, free videos and so on. Go and take a look at YouTube. Similarly for Neurobox, lots of great resources and information. And last but certainly not least is the Helen Arkell Dyslexia charity. Again, they do such great work within our community. Please do reach out to them. But beyond the coalition members, we've also got with us, of course, we've heard such wise words from Nat and Danielle this evening, and of course Kim, but I special mention to Nat and Danielle. Guys, are you happy for people to reach out to you who've listened to this recording, who want to speak to you about your words of wisdom and the great work that you do? Is that okay, Danielle and Nat, if folks reach out to you and come find you?
Yeah, you can find me at Thinking Like Coach. I'm following Sue with a plug.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm on Instagram, or you can look at Danielle Cudjoe-Michalski on LinkedIn. Or if you don't like social media, you can just book a chat with me at hello@Thinking Like Coach.
Love it. Thank you, Danielle. Nat, how would you like folks to reach out to you?
Okay, well, you're always welcome to add me on LinkedIn, just Nathaniel W Hawley. And my website is divergentthinking.uk, and my email is nat@divergentthinking.uk. If you're ever in the market for workshops that are fun, interactive, strength-based, more than happy to. So would love to hear from any of you.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Nat. Kim, are we okay to reach out to you if we want to tap into your wisdom as well? Where can we find you, Kim?
You can find me on LinkedIn. Sometimes people find me on Paytos website, where I'm listed as a tutor assessor, but I think LinkedIn's quite a popular one. I'm always happy. I do get random phone calls sometimes and have nice chats and with people. So yeah, I'm more than happy to connect up.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And Steve, I know you're part of the Neurobox family, but are you happy for folks to come find you as well?
Yeah, that's fine. So I'm hopefully pretty easy to find. The website is parke, which is PARKECORE.com. And you can find me there, but I'm also on Instagram under the same name, and also LinkedIn as well. So yeah, pretty easy to find, and if I can help in any avenue, yeah, always glad to.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, thank you, experts. Thank you so much for giving of your time so generously. We hope for those of you listening have been truly inspired by this conversation. I've made a lot of little notes while I could hear everyone speaking. There's lots to think about there, isn't there? And please, let's keep talking about these important issues. This is how we raise the volume, isn't it? As we go on and make the changes we want to see for our community. Thank you so much for your time. We hope to welcome you next time around when we have an equally brilliant session. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Cheers all.
Bye. Bye-bye. Thank you.
All the best, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, experts. We've stopped recording.